massive news. I mean, she's just imploding here in real time as I look at all of this information coming in. Where do we begin? Let's start with Rasmussen, okay? So this is fresh, hot off the presses, and you can see that Rasmussen is predicting he's up in Arizona, and he's up in Georgia. This echoes what we saw out of none other than the New York Times. I mean, the New York Times like killed them. They didn't want to have to report on this at all. I was going through all the news, as I do every day. And yes, I read things like the New York Times, and I'm like, well, where's the poll story? I mean, you got to scroll halfway down the page to get anywhere near it. But they have him taking the Sun Belt, and this is similar to what you're seeing there in Rasmussen. So he's up 2 in Arizona. He's up 3 in Georgia. Michigan, we still don't know, because that looks like as of August 17th, it was Harris winning there. If you go down to Montana, wow, he's killing it in Montana. You get Nevada, where they're predicting he's still ahead, but we don't have a recent poll there. I just think it's telling that Arizona, Georgia are really showing strength. And then let me show you another screen from this poll, taking a look at what Rasmussen just sent out. Here is the, I'm going to move my logo for a second, okay? We'll move it over here just for a second, because I want you to see what's coming out. As of September 23rd, you're looking at 49 Donald Trump, 45 to Harris. So 49% of Donald Trump winning the whole thing, 45% going to Harris. It's interesting, he's not as high as he had been, right, prior to the debate. But still, when I look back there, even, you're still within a range there, very much a range. And he's coming in around 50, sometimes 51 or 52. And, 49, maybe he's a little on the lower side, but look at her. I mean, she's 45. She had been as high as 50 at one point, but she's sort of consistently polling around that 45 level. And what's telling, again, is that people don't really want to have to say these things. So Rasmussen coming out saying effectively sort of what the New York Times was saying, which is that he's up in all these Sun Belt states, and then they have him overall winning there. So it means that there's a lot of different paths right now for Donald Trump, and not as many for Kamala Harris. In fact, I was watching Mark Halperin over on Newsmax the other day, and he's like, there's one and one only. And that's the thing here, like her chances are getting increasingly limited. Let me go to some more of these reasons, if you would, behind it all, because I'm looking at the Gallup poll, which just came in. It's not really a poll, it's kind of just a survey of everything that's going on. And they're basically saying that given these current measurements, you have many factors, I should say, favoring the Republican Party as opposed to the Democrats. So party identification and leaning, like this is the stickiness of the party, right? How dedicated are those voters? And then you look at things like U.S. satisfaction. You know what? That actually is really, really relevant too. So that's when you look at the U.S. satisfaction, only 22% are satisfied, and that means it favors Republicans. You look at economic confidence. For goodness sakes, we got the economic confidence indicator. We're going to talk about that in a little bit coming up. That was lousy today, but is it any surprise? So that, of course, would thus favor Donald Trump because it was a more positive economy with a little less inflation during that time, right? Remember that. So look, I want to go back to these things in a second, but just as I think about it, we talk about inflation. Hey, it's a good chance for us to give a shout out to one of our great sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show, and that would be American Heart for Gold. You can get up to $15,000 for all qualifying offers at American Heart for Gold by just using my name. So it comes in handy now. And then you can text Trish as well, my name, to 65532, 65532. You can call them at 1-844-495-1115. Again, up to $15,000 worth of free silver when you purchase gold with American Heart for Gold. And I would just say, look, I've said this and I'm going to say it again. I mean, gold is one of the best ways to hedge inflation. Silver is more of a bet on kind of where gold is going. So I'm kind of a gold girl, which is why I can tell you that the URL you need to go to is trishlovesgold.com. trishlovesgold.com. You can go over there, check it out, get a feel, if you would, for what the offer is and sign up. Just get the information, right? If nothing else. American Heart for Gold, trishlovesgold.com. Text Trish to 65532. Going back to what we're seeing out of Gallup. Wow. Okay, so Republican Party, who's better at handling the most important problem? Is it the Republicans or is it the Democrats? Well, what do you know? 46% Republicans, Democrat Party getting 41. So again, if you look at past election outcomes, the relationship of this little factoid, there's 10 of them that Gallup measures, is very strong to Republicans then winning. We were just talking about the economy. Which party is better able to keep America prosperous? Again, the advantage goes to the Republicans. Republican Party, 50%, Democrat Party, 44%, president job approval. So really bad approval numbers. We know that, right? We don't need to relive that. I'd like to see the VP approval numbers because I'm imagining those are pretty bad too. And so, of course, that again gives an advantage to the Republicans. Party favorability, the Republican Party, again, all of this. I mean, it's either neither, but it's, for all the things that are really important, U.S. satisfaction, economic confidence, the party better able to keep America prosperous, presidential job approval, party favorability ratings. I mean, that one's sort of, tied, so it doesn't have quite the same oomph. But even the little things, which are just sort of weak relationships to past presidential election outcomes, whoever's better able to keep America safe from international threats. I mean, I kind of consider that a biggie myself. Republican Party, 54, Democrat Party, 40. Preference for government activity, 55% say they would prefer government do less. 41% wants government to do more. So once again, the advantage goes to, the Republicans. So that's a bit of a problem, shall we say, for Kamala Harris. You got Gallup, then you get CNN, okay? Poor CNN. Poor CNN and the New York Times. This just kills them to have to report on their own polls here. Harris and Trump, they say, are in this dead heat. It is a total deadlock. It is so close, you can't imagine. It's so close that Harris is 1 point ahead of Donald Trump. Here's what I'm just going to say. If you're only 1 point ahead of Donald Trump, and they're calling people at home and saying you're on a recorded line and you're okay with that, and people are like, nope, click, thanks. I'm a Trump supporter. I'm not talking to you on a recorded line because, with AI and this, that, and the other. I mean, people get a little paranoid, okay? It's the reality of what we're living in right now. I mean, you got Hillary Clinton out there saying that maybe people need to be put in jail for their misinformation, or at least dealt with in a civil way. You got AOC saying she needs to go after the media. You got Gavin Newsom ready to lock you up for a political meme. I don't think people really want to talk to pollsters on a recorded line. Again, this information coming to me actually anecdotally through a very close friend who said she got a phone call. She was all ready to talk. And then the pollster, opens up with, hey, we're on a recorded line. So I started doing some research, and sure enough, what do? They record these things. The polls record them because they believe it makes them more accurate. So New York Times can be like, whew, we're New York Times Siena, and we got the most accurate polls because, hey, we're recording everyone. Well, do you really have the most accurate polls? Because, again, a lot of people don't necessarily want that being recorded and therefore part of potentially public information or big data. I mean, that's sort of a no-brainer. You'd think they'd figure that out, but, they don't really. So here we are looking at polls that are not always the most accurate. Anyway, the fact that he's winning in some of them, that should tell you a lot. Like, it was bad in 2016 to say that you were supporting Donald Trump. It's really bad now. I mean, the rhetoric from the left has been so extreme and so extraordinary that people are really, really afraid to say what they think. So I don't think you can really get as accurate a read as you probably want on these things. And I think that inevitably is going to be a real problem. But here's the good news. When you think about all these polls and we look at all this data and we're crunching it and we're looking at these numbers, what I think is really compelling is to go out and look at the betting markets, okay? So there's one betting market I kind of like. And by the way, they're another sponsor of the Trish Regan Show, so we thank them over at Polymarket. We are thrilled to have them on board. I mean, I cite their data all the time anyway, so it's a very symbiotic relationship. You look at what we're seeing here from Polymarket. Now, I want to explain something. So this is suggesting that the advantage goes to Kamala Harris. But here's what you need to understand. So this is a real-time market. It's a real-time market, and this poll has come in. The spread has narrowed a little bit. It's a real-time market where people are actually using crypto to bet on these things. It's actually the technology behind it, because they're using Ethereum. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but I get kind of excited about these things because they're really cool. Ethereum is a kind of blockchain technology that can be used. They're using stable coins, however, so you don't have to be subjected to the whims of, say, Ethereum. But the technology behind Ethereum is really, really just super cool and super efficient. And because of that, you can, look, I mean, there's a ton of potential here. I mean, this may be the new CME at some point, but this is right now at present a betting market, and it's international because you can't really bet on this stuff in the US, but it's still fun to watch this because this tends to move sometimes ahead, sometimes a little bit behind. I'm going to point this out. Okay, so this is the latest. So this came out last night. This came out just moments ago. So my point being, look at how investors start to shift. Once they get a sense that, okay, the wind is blowing in a different direction, then boom, they move. Why? Because they have money on the line. So, there's no bias. There's no emotional attachment. They're just like, who's going to win? Okay. And so what you're seeing is that those spreads are coming in, and I wouldn't be surprised if by tomorrow, based on all the polling data that we're looking at, you're going to start to see a different picture play out in poly market. One thing that I think is kind of cool when we think about what happened at the New York Times and how all the Sun Belt states are suddenly rip-roaring for Trump. Well, I guess still within the margin of error. Take a look at this. This is not within the margin of error. This is another poly market data point, and they're looking at Georgia and they're saying, whoa, okay, these 16 electoral votes, they're definitely going to Trump. So investors are saying, and I say investors, but these are, people that are betting effectively. They have money on the line. They're saying, no, this for sure, Georgia is going to Trump. So it's worth just taking a look at, and I'll continue to do so because I just think this stuff is super, super, super cool. More data. So this is Nate Silver, and he runs something called Silver Bulletin. And I love looking at his charts because he's got a model that actually takes a whole lot of things into consideration. He updates the model daily. So this is not the most updated model. We'll see it again tomorrow, and we'll see if things change. I suspect they will, just like they'll start to change in the betting markets. Harris, 53.2. Trump, all the way down there. I don't think that's going to hold. And you can see how wild it's been. Look at how aggressively wild it has been. And once again, at times, there has been tremendous spread. You can see that Donald Trump was way ahead of her going into when he was sort of topping up there, that was actually just ahead of the debate. And he was like nearly 70% chance of winning. And now we're starting to see it shift, but not a ton. And again, I'm just going to go back to, some of the basics like Gallup covered, as well as things like this. The Teamsters. Okay, I think the Teamsters are kind of onto something. Have you seen the Teamsters poll? You probably have. If you watch this show, reminder, subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. Make a comment. Let me know what you think. Okay, here's Harris, 34%. Trump, 60%. And those are people that were willing to go on record. So again, imagine how many people were not willing to really tell their union bosses just exactly what they thought. Well, the Democrats are getting kind of nervous.